Coming from the Caveman Studios in Buffalo, New York. Welcome to Caveman Corner with your host, Jeff.
Captain Caveman!
Thanks.
Click subscribe and the bell. Do it now!
Here live with Dr. Krol PT right after a UB seminar. How you feeling?
Not too bad. I don't miss rolling on mats that hard and thin.
No.
You've definitely got to spoil that Integrity Martial Arts with the shock floor and the nice mats. Nicest mats in the area, by the way.
100%. We definitely do have the nicest mats in the area, and I have the nicest mats in the area because I'm on those mats for like 4 or 5 hours every day, and we'll roll for 90 minutes. And man, like I feel it. My knees hurt, my back hurts. It was a little bit rough there, but we got it done.
And plus, everybody there was half our age plus.
Yeah, at least. I got a good throw that I'll be posting, so you guys check that out. One of those young guys.
Yeah, I will say, as an orthopedic expert in the area, if you're going to roll, Integrity mats will add 5 years to your training life.
I'm going to clip that up and post that 100%.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, and it's not just blowing smoke. It's every throw, every takedown, every movement on the mat, it all adds up. And if you're on bad mats or bad floors or a bad everything, I mean, it'll toughen you up for a while, but it also adds to your attrition as a business owner too. So it's just one of the best investments you can make.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm glad you sort of touched it up. You did the pool noodles for a while, and that didn't work, so you touched it up with the heavily priced styrofoam blocks.
Yeah, that was a pretty expensive. Finding out that they're styrofoam. They're supposed to be shock absorbing styrofoam. It feels just like a regular styrofoam block. It does a really good job though. So I guess whatever it costs is worth it to keep my knees healthy. But actually, Grandpa Butch, this old guy that I trained with for a really long time, he's the one that gave me the idea to have good mats because throwing each other on that hardwood floor like destroyed his body. And he talked to me about it over and over again. So first thing I did was I made sure that I put in nice mats and a good solid base, good floor and everything.
Again, it's one shot at a time. It's a couple newtons of force less every single day. And yeah, I mean, the mats don't really help against the wrist locking that Jared does, but
no,
I saw him popping in the corner there. I saw him pop in.
And Mother's Milk. We actually talked about you quite a bit, Jared. We talked about how those rounder style grapplers really like to do the wrist locks and the Mother's Milk. So you got some play today at the seminar.
If we're going to go way back into Jared's past, can we call it the Tasty Milk?
We could call it the Tasty Milk. That's going to be his new nickname, Tasty Milk.
There you go. Which makes it sound even worse.
It does sound 1,000 times worse. Also, for anyone that's at the seminar, if you guys come this week and you sign up, we'll tell you what Hayden's nickname really is.
Yeah, we kept that close to success. Actually, we won't tell you the first week. We'll tell you after you sign up. Then won't tell you. So 2 weeks, we'll tell you.
That's our $1 million offer. We tell you what Hayden's nickname is.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. 100%. You tell them it's worth it. So. You gotta help sell the business.
I think it's worth it. That's right.
So I had the opportunity to teach at a seminar because you've been teaching and you work at UB now. So can you tell me about the change in your life or still doing your practice? What led you into teaching and what kind of enjoyment do you get from teaching?
So I was teaching at Buff State College at the time. It's university now, but I was teaching at Buff State College, and I still have my practice. It's still running just fine. It's kind of at an equilibrium where I'm intentionally not growing it, but it's not churning either. One of the problems in a lot of gyms and businesses is that you have a churn and you start losing members. I mean, you're well aware of that, how that works. And I haven't had any type of real major churn. I mean, the fasciculations in the business is staying pretty much around a set point. But I was teaching at Buff State University for a while and doing adjunct work, building up my resume, and I found that I'm pretty good at teaching. And one of the things I really like is that if I do that, I sharpen up all this material, this knowledge base that I have, and it's actually helped me clinically quite a bit. So I'm able to kidney dysfunction and autonomic nervous system disorders and things that I was taught in school, but they weren't sharp. So if they're not sharp, just like a technique in jiu-jitsu, if it's not sharp and you don't practice it, it's not going to be available to you when the opportunity presents itself. I mean, how many times have you told me in the mat, oh, you could have gone for that technique right there, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should practice that, because then that technique would have been available. So I got a call in fall of 2023, about a week and a half before the semester started, and they needed someone on sort of like an emergency hire basis to take over for somebody that was moving to a different part of the school. And, I have some similarity in this. Like, it doesn't really matter how full our plate is, we're going to add stuff to it. If the opportunity rises, we'll figure it out. We'd rather have the opportunity for major growth or something interesting. We'll figure out the rest of the plate later. So I'm like, well, I'm already scheduled to teach at Buff State a couple classes. I already have the clinic, and now you want me to do full time at UB? Okay. So added it in there. Built one course completely from scratch for Indian physical therapists, and then taught 2 full-time courses that I had to redo quite significantly at UB. But yeah, the biggest benefit, like I said, is just really sharpening up this material for myself. When you talk about clinical application, I sharpen it up for myself. And ever since I started teaching in 2018, I've really picked up on differential diagnosis so much better. I'm picking up on, like I said, renal issues, OBGYN issues, neurological issues that I never would have picked up on before, acid-base balance issues that just, I knew about, but I wasn't keen enough to pick up on them anymore. So it's really been a benefit to me clinically.
That's a really cool thing to hear. And then when you're running the class, do you have a curriculum that you have to follow, and this is why you're learning more about the things that you're a little bit not brushed up on the most?
So we have a general overall curriculum for the exercise science department that I teach in, and my course fulfills certain parts of that curriculum. So one of the courses I teach is a strength and conditioning course, which is basically a CSCS primer, which is a certification. Another one is essentially anatomy and physiology. So you have a basic block of stuff that you have to cover, and then how you cover that and the means you go about that is generally up to you, as long as you're actually covering what you're supposed to be covering. I can't have an anatomy and physiology course and just not cover the digestive system, and then like that won't fly. But they don't micromanage you in terms of saying, hey, you have to teach it exactly this way and exactly in this order. They're like, you're a professional, you figure it out. If you need our help, we have it. But do it a couple of times, find out where the cracks are, meet up with the more senior faculty and the chairs of the department, and clean it up. But no, it's a good feedback system. I'm pretty happy there, because I don't like being micromanaged. I think, again, we're all professionals. We all bring something interesting to the table. So if you micromanage people, you're taking away that autonomy, which makes them special.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I love your office. I got to see your office today too. First time I was in the professor's office. I never run to the professor's office when I was in school. I tried to stay away from him as much as possible and just got the bare minimum done, kind of like Hayden. So
oh, Hayden's not a bare minimum guy. Hayden is incredibly aware of how much time he has to spend and if it's worth it. I don't think that's a problem. I think because Hayden also doesn't come into my office and explain, hey, I didn't get a 95. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Like he knows I'm willing to do this much. Like I know I can get an 85 with this much work. I need to do this much more to get a 95. It's not worth it. I'd rather roll. Okay.
Yeah. I don't like that, because if he gets a 95 or higher, then you have to wear my shirt in class. And so now I got to beat him up because he didn't do it.
I know he's got an orthopedic injury you can focus in on.
Shooting back into orthopedic injuries, which is a great segue, actually. You've been working with more fighters. You've been working with a lot more athletes. What do you run into? What are like some of the most common problems that we as competitors present to you that we're our own worst enemies? Where if we just listened to a little bit of your advice, we would probably have less injuries.
Part of the problem, I would say, is and it is not just the fighters, runners, dancers run into this quite a bit as well. No pun intended for the runners. there's no real off season for what you guys do. And unfortunately, I think it's also a matter of verbiage because, I've grown in the way I've expressed these things and trying to find the happy medium of how I can get this message across without people hearing stop training, which is exactly what athletes hear. When you say, hey, introduce an off season or do this or do that, what they hear is stop training. I'm going to lose everything I was doing and I can't afford to do that. And a lot of your high level pros will take a 3 to 4 month off season. It doesn't mean they don't train. Like hockey players, they take a 3 to 4 month off season. They don't forget working on their skill. They just cut it down to maybe one time a week. And then they focus on, okay, I'm going to work on hypertrophy or strength gains or power gains or something else in the gym that's going to help me with that while allowing these sort of overuse repetitive movements to recover. And that's where you see your problems with most of your athletes is they just don't introduce an off season. They won't stop rolling 5-6 days a week. And, to be quite honest with you, you're an outlier. You can handle it. But I mean, jiu-jitsu, like most anything else, is a sport of attrition. And while we see the people like you that are black belts and are successful at it, we don't really see the mountain of people that have stopped doing the sport, which I think a fair amount of them could have kept going if they maybe would have approached the sport a little bit better for their own body. And it takes that input too, is saying, okay, what can my body tolerate? You've known me a long time. I've never really stopped training, but I don't train hard enough or frequently enough to significantly advance. And I'm okay with that. I don't complain about it. I never walk up to you and say, hey, why don't I have another tip? How come I'm not this belt or that belt? I don't train enough for that. I don't progress enough. I sort of stay where I'm at. I maintain. But I also know if I train 5 days a week, my body starts to reject it. 4 days a week, my body starts to reject it depending on what I'm doing. So I listen to my body and I say, okay, this is what I want. And here's what I'm willing to put into it. A lot of times we see athletes putting a square peg into a round hole. And they just, okay, I have to do this comp. I have to do this comp. I have to do that comp. I have to do this. I want to be ready for that. And it's like your body's telling you it's not able to do it. And finding that happy medium of saying, okay, what can I do to supplement my work on the mat, maybe outside in the gym? Maybe it's one less day of rolling, but the 3 or 4 days I do roll is going to be so much better because I've supplemented it with something else instead of just jamming another roll day in there and, busting up your shoulder.
100%.
It's tough. It's very, very difficult.
Jared left his 6:30 a.m. calls. Man, my arm isn't working. Do I have to stop going to class?
No, you don't.
That's so funny. That's
But yeah, I mean, 6:30 a.m. calls, 9 p.m. calls, they happen. And, it's sort of the nature of my business. I'm a concierge service where it's all cash based and it's all private. It's, no insurance, but, it's the nature of my business. And, you've talked about it every now and again, you put a post up in an integrity thing, or, I saw you put the thing about Southtown's MMA and you started to go into the behind the scenes. And it's always that iceberg thing that you see in the pictures where here's what we all see, here's what we don't see. And, when I charge people for my services, which to be quite honest with you is way below what even other people in the area are charging for private physical therapy services, what they don't see is the 7 or 8 different text messages, the checkup on you in a week and a half. Hey, how's it going? Or the person messaging me at 5 a.m. saying, hey, my leg is now numb after I did this, and 15 minutes back and forth on the phone. But I don't charge them for that. But, that's the stuff they don't see. And it's part of the business. It's the business I signed up for, and I'm okay with it. I'm not complaining about it. It's just, the 6:30 a.m. call with Jared is, it is what it is. Like you got in touch with me on the Saturday one time. Hey, my neck's really bothering me and I'm wrestling later today. Okay, let's do it.
Like, so what's the goal? Do you want it fixed or do you want to wrestle?
Well, and that's a very important part of any type of clinical care and any type of, any type of working with anybody. If someone comes to you for a private, one of the questions you're going to ask them is, what do you want? What are you looking to get out of coming to see me? It's, and then you will use your professional expertise to say, okay, here's what I think is what we should be working on to get there. But, hey, I have to wrestle later today. Okay. Am I fixing this or am I getting you through this?
Right.
You're going to get me through it. Okay. Then that's going to very much dictate how I run that session. And we're all on the same page as like, hey, by 6 p.m. tonight, you may not be very happy, but for the next 3 or 4 hours, we'll be passable.
Not only that, you came to the tournament and then the first 15 seconds of the first match, doink, right on my head.
Right on your head, right in the direction that you were having problems in.
That was fine. It held up till I got home.
It held up. Yeah, but the thing is, we knew exactly what was going on. We knew that this was the goal and this is how we approach it. And, it's not for me to tell you what your goal should be. It's for me to give you information. And, the term I used today, and I used it in the hallway at Clark Hall today, was risk reward. Is it worth it to you? You're the one that has to live with this body for the next 60 years. I don't. So if it's worth it to you, fine. It doesn't matter to me. Like if you want to roid up, fine, roid up all you want. If you want to, the example I use, and sort of an extreme example, is Kurt Angle. I mean, if you were to look at, he had a fracture in his cervical spine, which is risk of severe paralysis and all sorts of lifelong problems. But he wrestled, he won. He then springboarded that into a very lucrative entertainment career in the World Wrestling Entertainment and gave himself generational wealth for his family. Would he ever go back and make a different decision? Of course not. So it's not for me to say it's worth it or not,
Mm-hmm. I think,
but it's an important thing. You got to find out what the person's goals are and see if you ethically want to help them with it.
Ethically, you should be telling me.
I have told people not to do something, but it's pretty rare that I say don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
When I do say it, it usually has a lot of impact.
I like when you tell me you should never slow down because you're not going to be able to walk. That's my favorite thing. So I know never to quit.
Yeah, that's what works for you. And one of the things is that there's a bunch of different principles in training and rehabilitation, and one of them is individualism. So every one of us has a certain sort of orthopedic profile. Like I don't have an ACL in my right knee. So how does that mean I'm going to move? We don't know. Like we have a guess as to, okay, here's what we normally see with people with this type of orthopedic profile, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to fit that. I mean, if people didn't know I didn't have an ACL, nobody would ever know. Nobody sees any way that I move around. They're like, wow, he's got all sorts of leg problems. They don't see that. So your individual profile, you have this laundry list of orthopedic issues, which scared the hell out of the DPT students the one year I brought you in. But you function at a pretty high level. And, there's certain parts of you orthopedically and cardiovascularly that are outliers, which is a great thing. You're going to do a lot better with this. And you're not alone in that sentiment. Going back to the pro wrestling, one of the things that the WWE wrestlers do is they wrestle a lot. And the ones who are more retired and part-time, one of the things that they'll say is, this is actually much harder because I'm not performing and I'm not entertaining 5 to 6 days a week. Coming and doing this once every 2 weeks, my body is so beat up and I'm just not seasoned for it.
Yeah, I feel like I've been going since I started an MMA program. We started our MMA program now, and we went to 7 days a week. We have 4 MMA classes, wrestling classes, we have jiu-jitsu classes, we have Muay Thai classes. So I've been going nonstop. I've been sparring pretty much every class for 2 straight months, and like I'm still here. I've been doing better with like taking care of my body. I realized like every day I have to get up and I have to go train again, so I know not to like get hurt in positions. And I think as a up and coming training person in jiu-jitsu or MMA or anything where we're actually grappling, I think it's really important that we're able to give up positions in practice, because if you're feeling a lot of torque on your body, you should be working on getting to a spot where you're not feeling so much torque, where you can go with it, because over time you're going to get hurt. And I was just, that thing I posted in our chat group the other day about who gets hurt. And you see like from purple belt and up, the injuries go way down. It's because at purple belt and up, you can kind of control where the rope goes. And you've been there enough times to know like, oh, this is going to hurt me. I should go with it. If you feel like something's gonna like break, it just might break. So you should probably go with it. And it might take a few injuries just to realize what happens. And I think that's where a lot of the attrition in jiu-jitsu comes from.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with Jared that I'm not good enough when a new white belt comes in, or even a pretty reasonably new white belt. It doesn't have to be brand new, not like trial class person, but I'm not good enough to not be mean to them. People are like, "Oh, you're mean to them." I'm not good enough. I'm not like Ilfrey or Ryan or Joe, who's much better than I am, and like they can protect themselves a lot better. Like I'm big and strong, but still I can get caught in a bad position, or something that they're not going to get into, or they can get out of it much easier than I can. So I kind of have to be mean. But yeah, to your point, the higher belts, purple and up, that really appears to me from my sort of intermediate perspective on it. That seems to be the turning point for when you actually turn into someone who's practicing at an advanced level. When you
Yeah,
become a
and
purple belt,
you can be relaxed.
like,
You're significantly better than most of the people you roll with, to the extent where you don't have to put yourself in a position where you're fighting all the time. I mean, you can choose to, like if you're a competition and trying to get your heart rate up and you're going with someone else that can protect you, that's moving at the same pace as you, like you can do it at that pace, and like you need training like that as well. But um, to your point, like probably the worst thing that happens with white belts is, number one, you have to protect them from hurting themselves, and number
yeah,
two, you have to not get elbowed in the mouth or a knee in the face or lose teeth because they're doing something completely wrong. So if you're not actually protecting yourself, you can get really injured from a 90-pound girl can hurt you like really bad if you're even being and you really have to protect yourself.
and that's why I said today, with the seminar, we did a little bit of rolling at the seminar, like, and again, you're at such a level where you can completely control the situation with just about anybody that you're ever going to roll with at a seminar like that, for sure. Me, I wasn't finishing submissions. I wasn't cranking anything because they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're in a bad spot. They could roll a weird way, or they could squirm, or they could try to power out of something and all of a sudden snap. And again, I'm not at that level where I can completely protect them. So the way I do that is just don't crank it. Let it go. I know I got the submission. Doesn't matter. I don't get any points for it. So there's no medals. It's just no one needs to get hurt.
Yeah, unless you're like us and you got a racket built up where we injure each other and we send them to you, and that's how and then you send them back to me and I hurt them some more, and like that's a great racket we got going on there.
Right. Yeah, I'm not good enough to be hurting a lot of people. Usually the people that I'm good enough to really hurt, they're just not going to come back.
Yeah.
So that's actually bad for us.
We'll get through the comments real quick because we got behind on them. You charge below Excelsior rate and you give one-on-one attention. And like I'm gonna throw it back to you because you told the story about when you first went into PT perfectly at the seminar today. And when I heard that, I was like, man, we got to talk about that on the podcast tonight. So when you went to go be a PT, what's the first thing I said to you, man? And I apologize for this again.
There was something along the lines of, why are you going to that? PT is bullshit. And the thing is, I can't argue with you because so much of that is actually true. And if you will afford me a chance to tell you some of my background on this and my thoughts on this, why I'm sort of persona non grata in our profession, I will gladly do that.
Please do. Please do.
So one of the things in our profession is reimbursement rates are going down. That's the only direction they're going, just down, 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 down. And our PT advocacy groups like the APTA, even the UPTA in some degrees, will just complain about it. They'll talk about, physician-owned practices are bad and insurance companies should be paying us more and we should be lobbying this, we should be lobbying that. And one thing they never do is they never go after the inside of our profession. So we really can't change what happens in Congress with Medicare and the reimbursements. We really can't change the insurance companies, but we can certainly change ourselves. And that has been my message for the last 10 years. You're pretty well aware of that message. Like, we need to do a better job. And I get nothing but heat from inside the profession for it. If I think if we spent in the physical therapy profession going after the clinics that are seeing 4 patients an hour and doing cookie cutter exercises, we would actually get a lot better off, because we could then have a leg to stand on and say, hey, we're doing a really good job. It doesn't matter what our degree is. Nobody gives a shit about our degree, to be quite honest with you. We have doctorates. Nobody cares. You guys only care if we're doing a good job. I mean, you would go to a kinesiologist or a personal trainer if they were doing a good job with you and made you feel better. You don't care about their degree as long as they get the results. So we don't have a leg to stand on when we tell these insurance companies we want more money, because we do a shitty job. And it was immediately to your point. Your point is not something I've ever argued with you about. And PT is bullshit. Yeah, a lot of it out there is. A lot of it out there is garbage. A lot of it is semi-supervised or unsupervised cookie cutter exercises. It's things you could and should be doing at home. It's passive treatments that have no clinical evidence behind them. And even though that's not always, the end all be all, when a clinical passive treatment like ultrasound is 25 to 40 years old, it should have some clinical evidence at that point. These things have no evidence behind them, no significant evidence, but they get used, and they're going to get used a lot more, which I can get to in a second. I know I'm kind of off on my PT rant here. I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
But it's a real problem, right? We if I was an insurance provider and I walked into a clinic, and I'd actually start paying us less. I mean, I'm on the side of the insurance companies paying us less because we don't deserve more. And, that type of message saying, hey, we need to do a better job, everybody just fights me on it. It's insane how much they fight me on it. They'll blame the insurance companies. And I'm like, we're not doing a good job. Why would you pay us more?
I would say this is probably true for most of the people that go to PT that haven't used someone like you. Like, Jared goes to you now, Amanda goes to you. Like, we fill our gym because, I recommend you. And then they go to you once and they're like, oh, shit. They see the difference that, I was telling them about. When you go to a regular PT, they don't even really look at you. You do the assertion of where we are physically when you start. And like, I go to PT and they already have like my thing printed out what I'm gonna do. They haven't even really looked at me, like it's directly right from the doctor. So they're like, "Oh, here's what you do." I was like, I stopped going because I can just look it up and do it myself. Why would I pay you money to go do that? And both my surgeries, really all 3 of my surgeries were like that. Even the one where I started seeing you, what they did is they're like, all right, so I went to the first PT and I was like, "Oh, forget it. I got a better guy." And they just gave me literally a sheet of what to do, and like, that like I can show you how to do this. I was like, I'm a professional athlete. I know how to do all this stuff. This is like, 101 stuff. And you're like, you're checking everything. You're checking my knees, my back, my squat, and like when I tore my bicep, like, and we fixed everything.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm on an island, that I'm the only PT that's doing this. There are PTs in the area that's doing this, but it's just like a bell curve with distribution. One standard deviation from the mean is 68%. That's where most PTs are. And now when you go past that, you're about 13% at the second standard deviation, but there's 13% in the wrong direction that are really, really terrible. So, we want the PTs that are out here sort of steering the ship and setting the name of our profession. And that's what I'm trying to do. But it's not just me. There's people like, Matt Veronica and Christine Abrams in the area that are really, really fantastic at what they do. And they're one-on-one and they're high value and high quality individuals. So there's enough of us out there. It's just, we live on our own little islands because we're not going to deal with insurance companies denying us payment. We're not going to deal with the overhead that comes with an insurance company. We just want to get people better the right way, whatever that is. And again, the 2 other people I mentioned, we have all different ways of doing it, but we get to the same goal, and it's all because we do high quality care, and it's not hard to do, to be quite honest with you. There's some people out there that are just special, and the way they do things is not reproducible. The way like Christine Abrams and Matt Veronica and I do things it's not unusual. It's not crazy. We're not gurus. We're not shamans. I mean, we were trained, at least Christine and I were trained at UB. She's 1 year behind me in the program. And, we just did our own education after your postdoctoral and just said, we need to do this better. The way that most PTs are doing it is not good. I think that's not all of us, but there's the amount of people that are seen by those bottom half PTs is really high. So that's the impression that people get of our profession, which is exactly why you said what you said. And I couldn't argue with you because, well, that's 60% of PTs out there. It is what it is.
Yeah. And then I understand why that happens too, because you need a job. Like, it takes a lot of time, energy, effort. You have to put a lot of stuff on the back burner to start your own business to do things the way that you're doing it. And you still have no guarantee of success because at some point, you still have to sell yourself and what you're doing. And hopefully, if I get one or two people that see this and it helps you, um, I help do a job. But it's so easy to just do what everyone else is doing, go to work every day, get your money, go home. This is what you went to school for. Like, you don't, you want to live a life, and you don't really have a lot of you don't want to excel professionally. And there's a lot of people that I see in my day-to-day life like that too. And I don't know how common that is or why that is, but I think if you feel like that, you're probably in the wrong profession.
And unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is. And to Amanda's comment here, and they never told me to massage my scar until I saw you. When I go back to teaching the anatomy and physiology and everything else that I teach, one of the things I'll ask the students about things like the endocrine system or the integumentary system is, do you think that as a PT I need to know this? And I get a few students with this trap. They say no. Why do you have to know the integumentary system, which is the skin? And if if the skin is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's going to inhibit movement in many cases. We addressed your skin when you had that distal bicep rupture. We addressed it pretty much right away. Like,
Right.
Hey, that's not healing the way we want it to heal. I don't want this to become a problem. And again, this is not crazy stuff. If you went to any top 30% PT in the country, they would address this. And it's not hard. It took me with Amanda a couple seconds to say, hey, we need to make sure that this skin is moving appropriately, or it's going to stick to the layers below it. It's going to inhibit movement. And that's not what we want. And, to a person who's just trying to live their day to day, is the 2 or 3% inhibition of movement a problem? Maybe not. But to you guys, it is. You don't want it to be 3 or 4 years from now and that tissue is fully adhesed and it needs a scalpel to break it up. And now all of a sudden you're having a trouble with a position that you shouldn't be having a trouble with. So,
For sure.
yeah, these things are not hard to do. They're not shaman stuff. It's not like I see the world so much differently. This is just what we should be doing.
I can't tell you how different it is. To me, it just seems so ridiculous. Like going to it's like going to a cookie cutter gym by yourself with no training knowledge, not researching anything, and trying to get better. Um, I would never try and do anything like professionally, athletically again, like trying to fight, trying to be anything in sports without using a really good PT like you. You see it at UFC PT now. They all have, or UFC Performance Institute. They all have PTs. Like all the real gyms have PTs. Like it's really just part of sports now. And that regular people
PTs
aren't
and
doing it.
ATs
It's just a shame.
Yeah, it's not that it's inaccessible. It's not like it's high quality telemetry work and stuff like that it's reserved for high end sports teams with money or Division I schools with money. It's this stuff is really accessible. There are really good PTs out there that don't need to see you 2-3 times a week. I mean, when I see people, it's, hey, here's what you have to do. We've tested it and retested to make sure this is actually going to benefit you. Go chew on this for 4 to 5 weeks. Get in touch with me in 2 weeks. Let me know how it's doing. We can get you in earlier if we need to, if it's not working. But you don't need to come in and see me every week to figure this out. Your home exercise program is what's going to make you better. If you're only getting better because I'm doing hands-on work one time a week for 40 minutes, that doesn't add up to me. There's 167 hours and 20 minutes in the week that I'm not putting my hands on you. And, that's probably where we should be spending our effort, is on making that amount of time better. If the hands-on stuff is going to help you, that's okay. but it should just be a sort of a reset to get you better. So yeah, this stuff for anybody who trains and competes, you really should have some sort of a professional in your corner. And it doesn't have to be me. It could be anybody, but it should be someone who you really vibe with and really you connect with. Not everybody connects with me. I would be completely lying to you if I said I make every patient better. I do not. Nobody does. If anybody says they do, they're completely lying to you. But you want a good personality fit. You want someone who will understand what you're talking about and understand what you're doing. That's why I kind of have a little bit of the niche with jiu-jitsu. Even though I'm not a black belt or anything, I at least am aware of these positions and the stresses they put on your body and, sort of the game that you guys have to play. From knowing you as well as I know you, I know what people who want to be very successful in jiu-jitsu, at least if you look at belt as a measure of success, I know what you guys have to go through. Right. So it's beneficial.
Also, you do chiropractor stuff, which is nice. I also didn't need a chiropractor anymore. Aren't chiropractors fake?
No, they're not fake. They actually exist. No, it's actually our practice acts overlap a lot more than they should. I went to a continuing education one time with Dr. Greg Rose, who's a chiropractor, and I thought he was really fantastic. And one of the things he said is, he goes, if you're a really good chiropractor or a really good PT, I shouldn't be able to tell which one you are. So if you're a really good chiropractor, you should manipulate and then find some way to stabilize that manipulation so that it sticks. And that's usually good exercise or good positioning. If you're a PT and you find out that, okay, neuromuscular retraining and exercise isn't getting what we need, I'm going to do a hands-on technique and then I'm going to stabilize it. So the practice acts really overlap. We should be doing very similar things.
Right. I was kind of making a Joe Rogan joke because Joe Rogan always says like they're from witchcraft and stuff. I didn't mean to shoot on chiropractors.
He also says that that they go on there and they start using big words and they start throwing stuff at you to make themselves sound smart and that you can't keep up with them and so you're just like yeah, you're right, because they're using words that you can't figure out at the time.
Yeah,
but PTs do the same thing. I know PTs.
I had an awesome chiropractor, Rich Brown, and he did the same stuff that you did. Like, he'll crack you up and he's like, all right, you got to do this, get this set. And he helped me quite a bit before I really started seeing you. And so some chiropractors are really good, but I've run into kind of the same thing with chiropractors as well. They're like, crack, 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 see you later. And then
crack, they're called.
Yeah.
Same kind of manipulations. One of the things I tell my patients who are seeing chiropractors, I don't tell them not to see them. If it's making you better, fine. If you're happy with it, fine. But one of the things I'll tell them is, tell your chiropractor what's going on with you. And if it's something new or something different and they do the same set of manipulations, you might want to consider going somewhere else. Because it's, they're not addressing your needs. Something else is going on. It's the same set of manipulations aren't going to fix it.
Right. I don't.
People like passive treatment.
Do you know a lot about chiropractic? They come in kind of like with the same set routine, like like a cookie cutter PT does. Obviously we talked about the curve. There's always going to be the people that go above and beyond, and there's always going to be regular people. I like watching Rich Brown run his practice. I see how much turnover he needs to actually make a decent amount of money. So I can see why we run into these problems where there's not time to actually work with the patients.
It's a business model issue. And one of the things you have to do in your business is you have to keep your overhead at a certain level. And that becomes difficult when you start playing with workers' comp and no fault and insurance and stuff like that, where, your reimbursement can dry up or just be denied straight up. So it's a real challenge. I don't like to leave that type of stuff in somebody else's hands. That's why I do the cash-based stuff. And I can always increase my prices if I really want to. And I keep my overhead low. I have a complete sweetheart deal at the place I'm at right now, which I'm very happy with. It's not a perfect place. The accessibility could be a little bit better. We have that ramp in the back if you drive through Beirut to get there, and then that convoluted elevator system. But, for the most part, it's okay. And then the overhead's really low. So, yeah, you kind of have to set up your business the right way, or else you're going to get stuck in a position where, okay, I have to see one patient every 10 minutes to make this profitable.
And you started out in your basement, man. And I was down in the dungeon back in the day. Now your basement's all nice. It's got a pool table and a grappling dummy. It's a lot different down there.
Yeah, now they don't bring people down there, I can make it nice.
What was it like? Was it a scary jump to go into business for yourself? Like when you first went over to Meadowbrook?
Well, I already had the personal training background. So the personal training is really the stable cornerstone of my business. So when I do a lot of personal training, one of my specialties is really people that have significant medical issues. They feel they can come to me and say, okay, I'm after cancer treatment, or I've had 2 reverse shoulder replacements. I've had this going on. So you have an idea what I need to do to keep me safe, and keep me in my home and keep me living independently. That's kind of my niche. I'm not like, hey, I'm going to make you lose 15 pounds. That's not really my niche, because you really don't need a trainer for that, to be quite honest with you.
You should
know,
come to Integrity Martial Arts. I'll knock that 15 pounds out of you. I'll give you the accountability to do it. That's all you need, accountability.
Right, because there's nothing sexy about it. You just keep showing up and keep doing it. You and I are at the point, and most of the people that work out in Integrity are also at this point, or pretty close to it, where you and I don't get motivated to exercise. It's just a non-negotiable part of our day. It's as non-negotiable as brushing your teeth and taking a shower and doing your laundry. Like it's I don't get motivated to exercise. I'm sure Ilfrey doesn't get motivated to exercise. You can have downturns, but you know he just exercises. It's not negotiable. And because of that, he stays in the type of shape that he's in. You stay in the type of shape you're in. I stay in the type of shape I'm in, because it's a lifetime of lifestyle. And there's nothing sexy about it. So I think a lot of people really don't need a trainer for that, unless you just need a cheerleader and someone rah-rahing you, which is totally not me. And it's completely transparent if I ever tried to do that. So, we're off on a little bit of an aside here from your original question, but personal training really became the cornerstone of my business. So it became pretty easy for me to then switch it and add the physical therapy onto it. Now, was it difficult jumping to Meadowbrook? Yeah, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I went into a lease that wasn't terrible, but it probably wasn't good either for where my business was and my business goals. But you don't know until you do it. Unfortunately, I mean, you don't know how helpless you are until you have someone on top of you that knows jujitsu, right? Something we were talking about today. You just don't know until you actually go in and be like, oh, okay, this is how this business works. This is how this is. And, so now my business is right sized and I'm very happy, but it wasn't terribly scary, because, one of the things I have is I have a lot of students who ask me these type of questions because I own my own business. And one thing I tell them is, if you're good, bet on yourself. It's a good bet. If you're mediocre, might not be a good bet. Doesn't mean you won't succeed, but it's a riskier bet. You might be better off working for someplace else and letting them handle the overhead, especially if you're undisciplined. But you're very disciplined on your business, so you handle your business pretty well. You don't miss payments on rent or utilities or anything else. You don't mess around with your business. You're very disciplined about it. So you're going to be at least somewhat successful, and you're very good at what you do, so you'll be successful on that end. But yeah, I not to sound conceited about it, I'm just being pretty straightforward. I know where I stand. I know I'm pretty good at what I do. So I knew this would be a smart move for me.
Yeah, I like that. I was like nervous, and I was just subletting from you. Like it was a big stand for me. Like when a gym starts, like Wolves, like Brandon Muckle starting the Wolves Academy. I'm sorry if I butchered the name, Brandon. I haven't really talked to Brandon about it, but like when you go into business for yourself, you find out a whole lot of things real quick. You're like, oh, now I know why this was like that. Now I know why this was like that. Because it's a lot of work to change things that you don't like about the other place. Like it would be so easy for me just to come in every day with like a curriculum that like just bounces all over. But I really try and make sure that people are learning and they don't. So like when I get students from other gyms and they come in and they don't know like very basic things, even though they're like a blue belt or sometimes a purple belt, and like, oh, I never seen that before. I was like, well, this is very basic. We should all know this. Like I really think that we should all be at a standard level. And teaching that way really eliminates a lot of people that just want to come and do fancy things, you know. And there's a lot of room in jujitsu for fancy things. Like all the cool stuff is fancy, but it all comes off of basics. So I actually enjoy having Elfrey come in and teach because he loves, like, he's up to date on everything that's new. He's playing with it every day in the gym. And when he comes in and teaches, like, he's really starting to learn how to teach now. Like, you can see, like, every time he teaches, it gets a little bit better. And I really like to make sure that all my people have the basics. And then, like, that's what I really invest in and I love to have in the gym is everyone's at least at this certain level. Like, I want the floor to be very high, and then the ceiling is where we can go. But like, whoever the lowest on the floor, we got to bring that level up on the floor. And I've always believed that, and it's very difficult to do that in a regular gym. And that's one of the things I love about having just integrity and having it being a small place. I'm able to, like, make the worst person, give them time, and make the worst person not a weak link in the chain of integrity.
That's the benefit of autonomy of a business. You can run however you want, which is, you know, and the other thing I tell the students too is, you have to be honest with yourself. What really matters to you? What matters to me is autonomy. I like to be able to do what I want to do and how I want to do it. I have a certain thought process in the way I approach my medical treatment that I don't want anyone getting in the way of. And I was finding that when I worked at another place. Not that they're bad or anything. It's just, it was incompatible. And I keep my business at a certain size so I can maintain that. If your business were to quadruple or more in size overnight, you may have to change some of that because you might need to bring other people in to help you teach. And, so there's a give and take in terms of size of business. Like we're at a spot where we like it, but I know you have higher aspirations in terms of
Yeah,
making your business
scaling,
really large. I mean,
scaling
me,
stuff.
I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, and neither one's wrong. It's just you give and take with doing that.
Right. Scaling for me is difficult because I don't want to just bring in like instructors from other places. I want to make sure that they have our philosophy in mind too. I don't want them to just work with the good people and like leave everyone else behind. It's very difficult for me to turn over the reins. Like I definitely want someone to this is the truth. Me every day. What are you teaching today? Caveman. Depends who shows up. It's not one size fits all. I do try and cater to who's in the room too. You know what I mean with the lesson plans. Because sometimes like we were just talking about the other day. You come in, oh, we're gonna work a bunch of leg locks today, and then you got three people that have never touched a leg before. So I was gonna show the escape to heel hook. Now I'm going to show like art stuff, and that happens sometimes too. But eventually we're gonna like have all the classes laid out. It's just a scheduling and scaling issue for me right now.
You'll get there. I
Yeah.
have no doubt. Just take time and persistence. And like I said, if you're good at what you do, betting on yourself is a good bet. But I tell my students all the time.
I'm sorry, I was actually addressing the comment. I totally forgot what we were talking about. I'm the worst with these. Like my ADD takes over, and I read the comments, and I'm like, I talk to the comment instead of you. So that was different than what we were talking about. I'm sorry. Um, Getting back into it, what is in the future for you? Are you gonna go full time teaching and try and cover off the business a little bit, or are you gonna just continue to do what you're doing?
No, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing for now. I really like it. I work as a full-time professor at UB, but obviously we have a summers off essentially. Like we're not teaching essentially. Winters we're not teaching, but I'm still doing work for the school. But I don't want to give up the clinical care, so I'm not going to do that. However, do I want to grow it to the point where I have to hire somebody? No, because I don't want that headache. And again, that's just me being honest about what it is. If other places want to have 7 locations and hire a bunch of people, that's great. It's perfectly fine. What I might do, and you know, a probably a 5th or 6th down the I'm going to Fredonia. Going 5th or 6th down the list as to why I teach is I'm really exposed to a lot of excellent students. People that are going to be successful doing something in the clinical world or whatever. And could I partner with them? That might be something I'd really want to do. Get somebody in there who really teaches Pilates well, or is willing to do their own physical therapy just sort of in the same building that I'm in, and we're sort of partners instead of employee-employer. That'd be something I definitely entertain, because that'd be one way you can grow without the headaches of, having to hire somebody.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really have that ambition to become the biggest in the area or anything like that. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. So, as far as getting happier than happy, I know this is kind of a bad type of thing, because ambition is supposed to be a very good thing. You're always supposed to be growing, and that I grow internally and try to get better at the way I practice, but I don't necessarily need my business to be the biggest in the area. It's not something I really care too much about,
Do
because
you
I only
think
have
that's
so
a
much
trap?
room to expand anyway. If I expand the business too much, I can't teach. If I expand my teaching responsibilities too much, I can't run the business. So right now it's at a pretty decent equilibrium. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Do you think it's a trap to like? So we hear in America like, go bigger, keep growing, be the best. Do you think that's a trap? And do you think that's some of what? I mean, literally, that's your places get too much overhead, they get too big, and PT, not your places, but and PT in general, and this is what causes the poor care. So then it just becomes that again, because now you own all these businesses and you're employing a bunch of people, and you're like, "But I'm not paying you to do that. Like, get your shit together, get it done quick. Here's what you got to do: get them in and get them out."
It's sort of a shoot off of the Peter principle, if you will. It's like the Peter principle is you get promoted to your level of incompetence in an organization. And if you keep trying to grow, eventually you're going to grow away from your initial mission statement and what you wanted to do. Now, if your mission statement has truly changed, that's fine. But unfortunately, to get that second location, it's like, okay, my overhead is now going to increase. So now I need to start seeing 3, 4, 5 patients at the same time to make it happen. And I'll only do it for a little while. And then you don't,
Hmm.
because you say, okay, now my reimbursement went down because of fee schedule changes. So I have to keep doing this. And now you're stuck doing something you didn't want to do because you tried to get happier than happy,
Right.
because you're supposed to be always moving forward, when to me, I've sort of shifted my focus of moving forward. To me, is just helping people. I mean, if I can help Jared do his thing and stay on the mat at his age, great. If I can help Amanda get back to more serious competition, then great. That is moving forward. I'm moving somebody else's life forward. It doesn't have to be my business has more people in it. It's, why did you get in business in the first place? That's kind of the deal right there. So I think it's just sort of shifting the focus. But yeah, you absolutely can trap yourself in this. I have to keep growing, and I have to keep evolving. I have to keep changing. Like, my treatment should be evolving, but I don't have to have a bigger business to be doing better, per se.
Right. And you're not financially successful where you're living in a mansion and driving 2 Lambos, but you're doing well for yourself. You're able to go on vacations, you're able to eat whatever you want. Like, how rich do you really need to be?
Yeah, there's been several studies done about, how much money do you need to be happy, and is it a linear relationship? Is it a curvilinear relationship? And it really kind of flattens out. People make us above a certain point and they're no longer any happier. Usually because your problems that come with that type of money change,
Right.
or what you had to do to get it, or what you have to do to maintain it. So it's yeah, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, and I don't really feel the need to get bigger, per se. I know that's, again, always looked down upon in the business world, but my overhead's low. I don't need to raise my prices 25% every year like other people do. Like, I just don't need to do that. I feel like then I'm not helping the people that I really should be helping.
Right. Well, if you do see Caveman open up multiple locations, trust me, it'll be better than ever. I'll never sell you out for money. I will do that for sure. But if you
At least
see
you're
me with like
forthcoming
5
about it.
locations, what's that?
At least you're forthcoming about it.
Yeah. If I can make all kinds of money, I'll throw you guys all under the bus to make that money. But until I'm at that spot, I'll continue to give you guys the best instruction that I can. One more time, I want to pump out there. Me and Dr. Krol are both in an Niagara Climbing Center. We're right off the boulevard. It's probably the easiest, and it's telling you to Strat Avenue. Like, just go off the boulevard. It's the Niagara Climbing Center. We're both in that building. I have a full-time MMA program. I'll post a link to like all the class schedules in here as well. And then Dr. Krol, if you want to like send me your information, I'll post it in the final thing that we put out. And thank you for coming on again. I think you're the guest that's been on the most now.
What's this, 5 or 6 times?
I think this is 6.
I mean, we were Fandoozying it. That's how far back we go.
Yeah, right from we were in $1 million studio, and now we're in my apartment.
It was that Baird Institute,
Yeah,
right?
that place is awesome.
Of Sweet Home.
I wish that guy didn't go broke. He lost so much money on Fandoozy. Ugh.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
Yeah,
He took a swing, though. I'll give him that.
yeah, and now he's in Vegas again, and he doesn't talk to any of us.
Whatever.
We got some Dominion play. I'm sorry,
Yes,
was that?
you don't have time to talk to too many more people anyway.
I only talk to people on here really, so this is all my human interaction. I don't really, unless I'm a coach, I'm not really seeing people. I don't really like talk to anybody because I don't have the need to. I just train. I got all my human interactions at work and in the gym. I don't have time for people. I just want to come home and be alone after.
There you go, and play Call of Duty now.
Hey, don't let people know I play first person shooters. I don't want people to talk.
Dominion instead. How about that?
Dominion instead, yeah. Play some Dominion. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Always pay attention to Caveman's Corner. We should be back next week with Ray. Hopefully, Ray's hard to get a hold of, so we'll see.
Yeah, where is Ray? It's like I'm not a cop. Ray should be okay being on. I thought Ray doesn't go on if there's cops.
Yeah, Ray has not been on for any law enforcement officers. Ray's not been into integrity since we have law enforcement officers training there now. So I don't know. I don't know. We gotta get Ray back. We gotta get rid of his fear of the police.
I haven't rolled with Ray since we were on the greens.
Yeah. Do you know that Ray and Adam are actually cousins?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's how Adam found out about me. That's why Adam trains with me, because of Ray.
Right. Ray's paying dividends for you.
Yeah, and Adam whooped him last time it rolled. They got to roll again now.
Yeah, I haven't rolled with Ray in a long time. The last time I rolled with Ray, I dislocated my thumb.
Oh, no. Oh, I remember that. That was Ray, huh?
Yeah, and then I put him in an omoplata.
Yeah. Man.
I didn't know what it was, and I still finished the submission.
We got class at noon now, too. So check out Integrity. Check out Caveman's Corner. K4 is coming back. We'll have some more K4 shows. Man, it's like less than a month away. I have some write-ups coming soon. And that's all I really got. Anything to plug while you're here, Dr. Krol?
I have my place on Instagram at Perform Rehab Train. It's physical therapy, fitness training, concierge physical therapy. So you don't need a physician script. You can get in touch with me anytime and work on whatever, whether it's I have to get better at this move or technique. This hurts. Can we make it better? This is broken. Can you get me through this tournament on Saturday? Sure, whatever. It's fine. But yeah, I do all that stuff.
I recommend them 100%. If you guys are a fighter or you guys are a serious competitor, I know we have a lot of you guys in the area from Booma, from WNY. You guys are all over the place. Wolves, whatever. Check out Dr. Krol. He can help everyone. He's not affiliated with my gym, although we're like really good friends. We're not affiliated.
Yeah, I'm gym neutral. I'll work with anybody.
Yep. Anyone except for me, because I'm the worst patient ever. He's like, don't train.
You're not the worst patient. No, I've never told you don't train.
That's good, because I wouldn't listen anyways. All right, guys. Peace out. Thank you so much.
Yes. We have wrist lockers at Integrity Martial Arts, so if you have to type for a living, stay away from Tasty.
Yeah, stay away from Tasty Milk. Dr. Krol, you're going to have to show us some wrist stretches next time you're in.
And my students got freaked out because of my wrists and fingers bending really far.
Yeah, they
do the whole, So they were kind of freaked out by that.
I didn't know that you were cheating in Mercy forever until I got older.
You can never beat me?
Yeah, what was going on? I was like, man, how do I lose every time? I'm such a little baby. And I finally figured it out after I saw how flexible your fingers were. I didn't know that forever.
I've never lost a game of Mercy in my life. You would have to squeeze it hard enough to break them.
you should be careful what you say. Now we got Nick Blackwell's gonna be coming for you.
Oh, I know. Somebody, I'm getting old now. Somebody will just squeeze my hand and break it.
Nick Blackwell, Amanda had the thing I told you how hard you squeeze, and Nick Blackwell
Mhm.
broke it. So better look out for him playing Mercy.
I'll just wrist lock him when he goes to grab my hand.
All right, thank you so much for the podcast. Sorry, it's disorganized like me. I just wanted to come
Okay.
in and free flow. We didn't really have a lot to talk about, but there's always so much to talk about with you. You're probably one of the smartest people I know, and definitely the best at your job. And I love to see that, and you inspire me every day. So with that, peace out, guys. I know that I said goodbye too many
Later.
times, but we're out for real this time.